Doors closing.
And now, something completely different.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.
What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I'm very excited about my next guest. You can hear her every morning on Orlando and the Freak Show on Wild 94.1 and middays on 98.7 The Shark. The one and only Meredith is on Hoppe Hour. How's it going?
I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have me on.
Of course. I've always been a really big fan of how you're honest on the radio. And to me, you do a very good job of representing women on the radio, because there's some shows I feel like sometimes get too silly, but I like how you're real on air, but you also are respectful on air.
Yeah, I do my best to kind of just speak for women in general, but I'm not trying to have anybody else's voice. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it doesn't bother me if I have a different opinion than even the majority, because I'm the one that's being asked the question, although I feel like women should be represented. So although I am the voice for a lot of people that are listening, you know, sometimes a lot of people will say that I get it wrong, but I try to do my best.
Now, every Monday, it's at 8:20, right? You guys do Plead the Fifth?
Yeah, we do that, and then we rotate that segment.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's going to be me, sometimes it'll be Orlando, sometimes it'll be Rich, and we just go around and around and around every single week.
Now, when it's your turn to be asked things, on a 1 to 10, how nerve-wracking is it?
I'm quite used to it now. I think if you think about it too much, you can work yourself up and get a little bit too much anxiety about it. I mean, there's definitely been times when I've been sweating during the segment and I don't realize it till afterwards, and like I lift up my arms, I'm like, okay, well, that made me a little bit nervous. But no, I think now I'm just kind of used to it. I'm very settled. Even this weekend, I was doing a little runway show for benefiting the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and one of my bosses was there, Ron, and he came up to me afterwards and he was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you did that. Were you nervous at all? And I was like, not at all. I just kind of just go. That way I don't overthink things. But especially if you're talking about anything that's personal or kind of funny on air, it's not that big of a deal. And if it's something you have to kind of present in front of a class or in front of, you know, thousands of people, the way I make sure that I'm not nervous is just to prepare.
Now, what are some of the things that you have learned from Orlando over the years?
To be natural, just to be myself, and to not be prompted too much about anything, and just and to listen to what the other people are saying, see where the segment goes, let a joke kind of settle in before moving on too quickly, because you don't want to take that moment away from the audience. You don't want to take it away from the room. And just to kind of read the room, you know, if you're kind of feeling uncomfortable, or also if you're kind of tuning out, even when taking a caller, the audience is probably feeling the same way. So you just got to kind of multitask at the same time. So that's definitely something I learned.
My saying is, if I'm bored, you're bored. So I'll often move on from topics if I feel like it's going on too long, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. So I've been in situations like that in segments where I felt like it was a little bit boring, but then all of a sudden somebody I'm working with or a co-host or something like that will say something out of like left field, and it would have never happened if there wasn't a little bit of awkwardness or a little bit of boredom. And then all of a sudden it takes it to a heightened space of hilarity, I guess, in a sense, and then it'll go into a different area as well. So sometimes that unsettled kind of nervousness, or it's a little bit bored when you're taking calls, sometimes the caller will just say something so crazy out of nowhere because they're rambling and then they catch themselves. So it just depends on the situation.
Now, I've always wondered, I know you worked up in Jacksonville. You were MJ's board op, correct, when he was syndicated up there?
Yes, yep. That's so I started off at 97.9 Kiss FM up
Yeah.
in Jacksonville, and while I was interning while I worked in college, and yes, I worked myself up, and then I was part time and then full time, and once I got my full time position, they allowed me to be a board op.
So that was your beginning in radio, correct? Kiss FM in Jacksonville?
Yeah, so that's where I wanted to work. I specifically wanted to work at the rhythmic station because I loved, like pop music, but I also loved hip hop, and I kind of liked the mixture of both, especially growing up in Jacksonville. It was always kind of rap, and it was always rock music at the same time. So,
Duval.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up listening to that station, and I really, really liked it. Plus, they were the competitor against like the biggest station up there, which was the Ape. So it was really cool for me to finally reach my goal, which was that. And then once I reached that goal, my next goal, I didn't really know. I just knew I wanted to graduate college, and then I was getting job offers from all over the country before I decided to take the job with MJ. But because I had been calling while I was actually board opping, there was female representation on that show, but it was a lot of interns, and they were good and entertaining, but I don't know, I just felt like I could provide something else. And especially since I was in the studio every single day, it wasn't like an intern that was in and out or not working that day. I was there every single day listening. So when it was a little bit male driven, a little bit too much, and I felt like they could use a female voice or me just to say something silly or outlandish, I would personally just call and just be a listener. And then I ended up being a normal caller, and MJ seemed to really love that one of his board ops from a different syndicated market would call in, and also it's a good representation of that city at the same time.
Now, when you got the job with MJ and you moved and worked at FLZ, what was the biggest change between working in Jacksonville radio and Tampa Bay?
So I got the job 2 months after I graduated college, and I was looking all over the place in different options. And so I didn't know anybody in Tampa, and it took me, maybe like 5-6 days. I packed up everything. I moved down here. I had never been to Tampa before ever in my entire life. And the biggest change was, honestly, it was kind of like the city. Jacksonville is it's so organized and location wise, and it's very specific about where things can go and the planning. Coming to Tampa, especially, I don't know, like 15 years ago or whatever it was, I feel like, especially back then, it was just thrown together. Obviously, a lot has happened in the last 15 years, and it's becoming, it looks a lot healthier than it did. But even driving down Dale Mabry to the iHeart building back then, I was looking around like, I didn't know. I was like, did I make a mistake? This is not, I wanted to move downtown Tampa. I had these big ideas that Tampa was going to be a little bit different than it was now. And so I would say just the city and the location and the way it was planned out.
So I've been in Tampa, believe it or not, in about 6 days, it will have been 10 years that I've been in Tampa. And
that's a long time.
I know, it's crazy. And to me, the thing that I've noticed when I was working with Calta and Drew, now I don't work there anymore, so I don't know what it's like there, but I feel like there's a less live and local vibe in Tampa Bay than there was even pre-COVID. Like I felt like there were more locals 6-7 years ago, and I feel like now I'm meeting a lot of people from the East Coast, and it's not a bad thing, but I feel like 7-8 years ago, Tampa Bay had more of a Tampa Bay vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's just exploded ever since COVID. Wherever you go, traffic has just gotten so bad everywhere. If you just look around just at driver's license and just to see where everybody is from, everybody's still moving down here from New Jersey, New York, all over across the country. It's not even just the East Coast. But the vibe has definitely changed a little bit, but that's good growth for the whole Tampa Bay area in general.
Now, what were some of the things you learned working with MJ? For me, the most fascinating part about working with MJ was my first day working with him, and he walked in really quiet, and I was like, is he okay? Is he going to be able to go on air? And he was just prepping, watching FLA, just doing his thing. And then 6 a.m. comes on, and his music comes on, and it ends. and he was like the Energizer Bunny. And it was honestly kind of influencing because it's like I've worked with people that are kind of lazy on air, and I feel like the one thing people can't take away from MJ is how hard he works on his show.
Yeah, he does. He does. He says he does when he gets home, and I totally believe him when it comes to that, because if you've ever worked with him or you're in the studio with him, yeah, being over prepared is definitely MJ's style. Meaning, he has a slew of papers all over the place, all over the studio, all over the board, all over the desk. Like you can't even see anything half the time. So it's like an organized mess, I guess, if you want to call it something.
Sort of like a circus. Kind of like a circus.
Yeah. In his head, it makes sense. For anybody else walking in, they're like, what the hell? Like, it looks like, I don't know, a newspaper just like exploded everywhere. So yeah, he's very overly prepared, so much so like a lot of the stuff, like probably 90% of the stuff he has to talk about, he never actually gets to.
Oh,
and
yeah,
new stuff the next day. Yeah, and that's actually true. But he is like the Energizer Bunny. Like the second he goes on, and he doesn't really talk to you too much about what's about to happen. He just goes on and he has everything mapped out and planned out in his head, and he'll prompt it while he's live on air. Like, hey, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. Unless it's a really big segment or something, kind of like the Super Bowl egg challenge or something, you know what's going to happen. But other than that, he'll tell you what's going to happen. You can ask him, but you kind of just go in there fresh for what he's going to bring you for the day, unless he's asking you to pull some audio, which I used to do when I worked with him. Now, in comparison to working with Orlando's extremely prepared too. It's just different. We have meetings after the show every single day for about an hour. And so it's a collaborative kind of, putting the show together. So Orlando also does most of it. But if I have, an idea, we can kind of put the show together and flow, the entire show together. So, more collaboration, I would say there. I haven't worked with MJ lately, obviously, so I wouldn't know what it's like nowadays. But back in the day, it would be more of MJ's planning.
What I notice, he'll say, "I love MJ," so I'm not talking crap, but it's the same thing you said, where he doesn't have enough time. Like he'll have like 7 different topics, and he'll be like, he puts it in like this like folder that he puts in his backpack, and then he's like, I'll get to it tomorrow. And then he usually gets to it tomorrow. A lot of times it's like a BuzzFeed list or like a list from some of the like prep sites. And to me, I think it shows someone's talent if they don't get to all the topics. Because I've worked on shows where they had nothing to talk about by 8:30, and it was like just dragging ass. And the thing I find fascinating about MJ is having Michelle there, because I just met her for the first time, and you can definitely tell that marriage works in a way. You know what I mean? Like they're like ride or die.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can tell that they've been together for a really long time, and that they're best friends, and that they're very supportive of one another. And I told this to MJ and to Michelle. I think it was when I was walking by a couple weeks ago, that I like when I get to hear the show, I like her on air with him, because she's able to, in my opinion, in a healthy way, kind of like even out the room. Like if she disagrees with MJ or with Fester, she can do that, and there's not going to be anything that happens, because what are you going to do? That's your wife, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a good, healthy way, I think, to have the show. I don't know if she's going to be hired or what they're going to do, or if they're still looking for another woman. Anybody that they bring in there, I'm sure would be fabulous if they decide not to stick with Michelle, but Michelle's great on there.
Now, what was the biggest difference? I know you went from working with MJ to, you were at 98.7 The Fan, right?
I did, yeah. And so I did sports radio in the mornings, and then I was involved in sports and Rays games, and then in the Bucks locker room, and just getting audio of the players and interviewing them and all that stuff.
What's funny to me is I did sports radio, and some people might think otherwise, but I was not bad at it. But what's funny about sports radio is how quickly something you write down can be said. So like I could talk about Kim Kardashian on my show and it goes for 5 minutes, but like I would write down a thought about like Tom Brady playing on the Bucks and it would be like I would say it for a minute and a half and then I'm like, that's all I have. Sports radio, the people that do sports radio are very good at it because you have to fill time, especially in like an off season, like February when there's nothing going on. It's sports radio is much different than music or talk radio.
Oh yeah, there's no breaks whatsoever. Although like Mike Calta's show is very similar to that in a sense. He has a lot of time to fill. I'm pretty sure they don't play any music on that show. It's just yes, I would assume like you have to have a lot of prep, a lot of things to talk about on that show as well. Obviously I can't listen for like 4 or 5 hours, but yeah, I hated working in sports radio after a while. And I quickly learned that the sports that I enjoyed watching, I wanted nothing to do when it came to work. I mean, I needed a job, so I was very thankful for being a part of all that stuff that I did. And it was a lot, but after a while, I learned that I didn't have enough sports intelligence to talk about whatever. I mean, I love college football and I love certain sports, but to talk about it for 4 hours, even with other co-hosts and stuff, it's very draining. And speaking of the off season, it's just very boring. I mean, how many times, in my opinion, because I didn't enjoy it to begin with, I mean, how many times you can talk about the Rays relocating and Tropicana Field and all this stuff, and that was before the hurricanes. It was just the same kind of conversation all the time, and you were just waiting for new information to come out so you could regurgitate the same argument back and forth again. It's just, for me, I understand why guys like it because a lot of guys grow up with it. Me, I didn't grow up with it. I didn't grow up with in a household where, you know, we had to watch the NFL. We had to watch this. We had to watch that. It was much later in life for me. So I was playing catch up a lot of the times. I was coming home and trying to learn about different sports. That way I didn't sound stupid on air. I didn't want to come off as the unintelligent, you know, blonde chick on air. I mean, I'm sure I had my moments and sometimes it may have been silly, but I wasn't trying to be silly. I was just trying to do my job.
Do you feel pressure? Because I'm not just saying this because you're my friend and to kiss your ass, but you're very smart. But do you ever feel pressure about the unfair dumb blonde you know, stereotype?
Not anymore. I that was one thing like Orlando did not, he specifically told me. He's like, I don't want you to play a role or a character on my show. He's like, you know, certain other radio stations, you know, it's the pukey kind of jock that they like on air. That's the sound. And he's like, that's the complete opposite of Wild. I want just you naturally, how we're having a conversation right now. I want you to talk on air. And so, that was a breath of fresh air because that's really not how I was taught things. Even in Jacksonville, you know, you kind of had to, you know, ramp yourself up and be like very extra instead of just kind of talking to your audience, just like you're talking to your best friend, which I think I do the best, just being myself. Yeah. And on MJ, I'm very grateful for everything I did and was on the show. I did have to play into that role a little bit more. And so, you know, going out in the Tampa Bay area, you know, people would be like, oh, there goes the ditz, there's that. Oh, but it wasn't just like silly stuff. It was like a lot of people actually thought I was a dumbass. And so after a while, it kind of gets to you. It's not like I'm on, people think, you know, radio is very, it's real. And so it's not like I guess in a sense, it's kind of, people look at it like a reality show, right? And it kind of is. But if you have to play up a certain role, they really ultimately think that you are that at the same time. So yeah, after a while, I didn't really like being represented that way all the time. And not that it was all the time, but when I was outside of the studio, there was a lot of the times that I had to deal with that. So just being myself, I could blossom and become what I am today.
Now, I got to work at iHeartMedia twice, but I got to be in the Gandy building for the last 6 months. And it's probably top 5 things I've accomplished in radio was getting to be in that building and getting to hear the stories and whatnot. The one that you can't tell, because I've heard it was pure chaos there, but what's one Gandy memory that stands out in your mind of working with MJ?
Working with MJ,
or
I
just
mean,
working in that building?
in the building.
Because I've just heard it was chaos back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was like, I mean, maybe at the end of the heyday of radio, in a sense, it was just vibrant and fresh, and you didn't know what was going to happen that day or who was going to come in. You didn't know if Maroon 5 was going to come in and play, or anybody. You didn't know if John Cena was going to walk down the hallway, or Lindsay Lohan, or anything like that. It was just crazy. Walking in the promotions department, just doing the dumbest stuff. And yeah, it there wasn't a lot of overly stressed out individuals where you felt like you were going to potentially lose your job every second, or you didn't feel like radio was shrinking as much as you may feel like that today.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Which can, the vibe is just not the same anymore. It's still fun, and I still love my job, but it's just a little bit different these days. So yeah, working in that building, I have a lot of great memories. I mean, that's where I met my husband.
How did you meet Anthony?
So he worked in the sales department, and
really?
I worked.
I didn't know that.
On air with MJ, and we went to what was it? They had a baseball outing out in Port Charlotte for all the employees, and nobody from the MJ morning show was going. So Fester called me. I remember he was like, "Hey, are you going to this on Sunday?" I think it was on Sunday. And I was like, "No." I was like, I was just out partying all night, and I was working. I was like, "I'm not in the mood." He goes, "Well, somebody from the morning show needs to go, and it needs to be you." So I remember just being like, "Oh my God." So I got myself ready together. I met everybody at the bus, and we went out to Port Charlotte into a Rays game, and it was a lot of fun. And I saw Anthony there, but we had never talked really or anything like that. And so I think like previously he had done like one of my remotes. And I just knew he was really entertaining and funny. He was making me laugh the whole time. And so we actually got to spend a little bit of time together at the baseball game in Port Charlotte. And then on the way back, after everybody had like a couple of beers and stuff, somebody that worked in the sales department decided to sit down right next to me, like the open seat. And he was talking to me, and he was like just being a little bit over, just a little much. Like I didn't really want to talk to him, and he was hitting on me, and it was just I didn't want him to hit on me. So I kept like looking around, and Anthony was standing up, and as we were driving back on the bus, and he looked at me, and I kind of gave him the please save me look, and he came over and he looked at the guy, and he was, made fun of him, and he's like, "Hey, this seat is mine. Why don't you leave her alone?" And so the guy left, and then Anthony sat down, and then we just started talking and getting to know one another, and then we went to a bar out afterwards, and we exchanged phone numbers, and that was pretty much it.
Isn't it crazy to think that because nobody else wanted to go to the game that you found the love of your life? Like how that works out, that like, hey, let's say what if Froggy went to the game or somebody else, maybe Hurricane, then I'm sure you would have met him. But isn't it crazy how like things work out like that?
Yeah. And I had been dating people in Tampa, trying to find somebody that, I don't know, that I clicked with, that I don't know, just somebody I could really spend some quality time with. And it was just trash for such a long time here in Tampa. And from what I hear, it's still trash.
Oh, it's awful.
Dating here in Tampa. It's like a big hit or miss. But yeah, so it was really nice, but we purposefully got to spend time with one another. It wasn't like I wanted to sit next to him and talk to him, but because we were on a bus and we got to actually get to know one another for like an hour or two. And then we didn't want to stop. So we went across the street. There's a bar still there, I believe, across the street. And everybody from the game went across the street and played pool and had a drink. And then it continued from there. It was really nice to kind of get to know somebody that wasn't trying to blow smoke up my ass. And he was, drinking, having a good time. So his guard was down. So it was really nice and refreshing.
Now, I've been to like 7 morning show boot camp radio conventions. I'm going to it this year.
Nice.
I talked to a lot of people on radio, on the phone and text. And the number one topic that everybody else in radio shows in Phoenix, LA, Seattle that I'm friends with, they often bring up the radio war culture that's in Tampa and how it doesn't exist anywhere else. What do you think about the radio war? I've been a part of shows that were in wars, and it's kind of fun at first, but then it kind of, at least for me, it kind of, I mean, I'm sort of in a war right now with Kelta, and it's like, it gets tiring because it's like, this is just radio.
Yeah, I mean, some people can take it too far. I'm not quite sure what's going on in your situation, but I think that's where things always get left. You know, it's always fun and kind of entertaining for a little while, and you could do that with anything, any kind of situation. But then somebody says something really inappropriate, really stupid, or does something really inappropriate, really stupid, and now it's just, you know, you took the kind of cool, the kind of moment that was happening, and now you made it, you crossed the line, and now it's not what it was anymore. So, but yeah, the radio kind of war stuff, I don't really feel it's that way anymore in Tampa, but I definitely worked here in Tampa when it was a thing, and it was fun. It was cool. It was entertaining. It was on the top of everybody's mind, like going anywhere. I remember there was a time when I could not go out anywhere, even to Publix, you know, see a drugstore, whatever. And, you know, without somebody asking me about what's going on with this or this situation, or this person said that, or what do you have to say about that? And yeah, so it can be a lot of fun. It's definitely entertainment, but, yeah, it's just sad. It's sad that some people have to take it too far.
Well, the funny part is I'm obviously not as like well known as you, but I'm still known in Tampa Bay. And people like, I remember there was this guy at LA Fitness that would always come up to me and ask me about stuff that was going on with my former employers. And I would literally go, I don't feel comfortable commenting on that because A, you never know when someone's recording you. And B, you don't want to be the guy that says something, you know, like I would always be like, I want no part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's better just not to say anything, or just to say something polite, you know, like, oh yeah, no, that's not the case. Or, oh yeah, I really don't have an opinion about that right now. I'm sorry. I don't really know what you're talking about. And so, cause you don't want to, you know, you want people invested in things, and you don't want to push people away, because that is an investment in you. That's still a listener. They could be interested in you or follow you. So I just try to be as even as I can without being dismissive, and also without saying anything inappropriate, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. So you've done top 40 radio, you do hip hop radio. What's been the biggest thing about joining 98.7 The Shark?
I grew up listening to classic rock. My parents, my mom, my stepdad, they raised me right in that sense. I mean, I grew up listening to a little bit of everything from, I played piano growing up. So there was a lot of Mozart and Beethoven, and then Yanni, and then, from classic rock and Jimmy Buffett. I could go on, and Duran Duran and George Michael. I have a love for a lot of different aspects, especially my first concert was going to see Sting. So me being able to talk up and kind of submerge myself in a classic rock radio station just feels very natural to me. And also, if there's some music or a song or an album I wasn't aware of, I genuinely love being able to kind of not only research it, but see if there's a documentary about it. That way I can educate myself on it and the history of it, and then talk about it on air. And it's a true love of mine, something that I genuinely really, really enjoy. And I also love passing that down to my daughters. Plus, it's cool. I get to go, there's a concert with Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper, and I get to go meet them and hang out with them. It's kind of a dream come true.
That's awesome. That's good that you're teaching your Gen Alpha daughters about rock and roll, because I often get afraid that it's going to disappear.
It seems to have like an upswing nowadays, and this is just solely my opinion. There's a lot of like newer metal and rock bands coming out that are being heavily streamed. So, it just takes a little bit of time for everything to kind of swing back in. I feel like, not that this is necessarily my opinion, but after COVID, there was a little bit of shift in the hip hop culture and sub hip hop groups. And so hip hop in general is still extremely popular, but because of that, there was like a slight decline. And then there was an upswing in country music, Morgan Wallen and all that stuff. So, it's still huge and a huge genre, but I feel like there's going to be a moment for rock and roll, but it's not going to be the same as what we grew up listening to.
On the weekend, Wild 94.1 plays throwbacks, and anywhere I'm going, if I'm in the promo van, if I'm in my van, or if I'm even listening on the app, there's nothing better than the mixes you guys air on Wild. It's like us listening to 80s music in 2005. Like, just that throwback vibe is just, it's pure happiness.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that nostalgic feeling, remembering the moment in high school when you're driving around in your first car, not thinking about having to pay the mortgage or the light bill or thinking about inflation or tariffs or anything silly like that. It's a moment of innocence that's fun. In high school, I was a cheerleader and I was concerned about my boyfriend and then making sure I got my grades up so I wouldn't get a C on my report card because I didn't want to get yelled at by my mom. Like those stressful moments back then are just totally different than the stresses today. So sometimes when I'm hearing something from the 90s and the 2000s, when we flip our format on the weekend, it's nice. It's just, it takes me back to a really special, good place. You don't know how good it is until maybe you get a little bit older.
Now, I don't want to make O feel old, but what I love and what I respect about O, he's literally been doing that morning show since I was in preschool. Isn't that just, he's a legend. It's crazy.
He really is. No, I totally agree with you 100%. Yeah, I feel very honored that I get to work with him. I think he's he said this before, so I could be botching this, but I think he's the longest running African American radio host in America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's also very cool. And by the way, O is just really good at his job. He's a natural comedian. He's very fun to work with on a daily basis. Him and I just get along like perfectly on air. He knows like whether it's good or bad, like where I'm going. I know exactly when he needs me to come in and say something, where the direction is going. And even if something is kind of not even entertaining at the moment, he's very witty and smart and down to earth. Good. He can turn a conversation into something that's very intellectual quickly and then make it very silly, the next, and then you're just laughing your ass off. So, and I genuinely mean that. Like I truly love working with him every single day.
What's funny is, I had a 21-year-old recently come up to me and he goes, it wasn't just me, but he was like, listening to you on the Bone and listening to Kelto on the Bone was crazy because I was at the bus stop and I grew up religious and that was the way I learned about naughty things and whatnot. Have you ever had like that like moment where somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, I grew up listening to you," or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. It's usually they'll call in and they'll probably say it to O. I've had people call in and say it to me as well. But it's just it makes me feel good. It doesn't make me feel. It just makes me feel solidified. It makes me feel like, wow, this is where I'm meant to be. Sometimes if you want to put yourself in that space, you totally can. I don't see myself as that, but not a lot of people in radio get a chance to have your listeners call in and say that they have continuously listened to you for that long. Because usually you either have to take a break or you have to take a job someplace else in the country or move or you lost your job and then you're on the beach. And so for somebody to say that in general, I look at it as a moment of pride.
Now, before I let you go, how can people listen to you on Wild and on The Shark?
So you can stream the show. I personally podcast our audio in the show.
I love it.
On a daily basis. So in and out of commercial breaks. I'm the one that's cutting up everything, and then it's uploaded by 9 a.m. every single day. So our audience can listen to it on the iHeartRadio app, iTunes, wherever you can download any or stream any type of podcasting. And then also we have a YouTube channel. You just go to Wild 94.1 and then hit subscribe. And we have videos that we upload on a daily basis as well. And so if you hit subscribe, then you can actually see us in the studio talking about it. And it's the same thing with The Shark, except there's no video of us. But yeah, you can listen to us anytime and stream us on our website at 987theshark.com.
I can't believe I almost forgot to mention this, but what's been the best part about working with Rich? Because I personally, Rich is like a brother to me, because when I needed a radio job, he knew me and he referred me to Tyson, who's also my guy. So Rich is always my guy. What are some of the best parts about working with Rich?
Rich is just a breath of fresh air, meaning he just comes off very silly and funny and goofy, and he's the single guy, so but he's also lived, a life. He's been to college, he's dated here in the Tampa Bay area, he's also lived here for quite some time, and so he's never really in too much of a bad mood. Like, he comes in every single day willing to start fresh and bring the conversation to the next level. He I don't know, he has his quirkiness as well. Like, he's really and I mean this in a positive way, like, he's very nerdy with his Marvel stuff. Yeah. And so it's just a different, like, you can tap into different stuff there. Like, I like Lord of the Rings and some superhero stuff, but I don't know anything about the in-depth ways that Thor did this or that. Like, I don't know, but he can actually have conversations in depth about all that stuff. So, but besides all the nerdy talk and all that, he's just a genuine, good-hearted soul at the end of the day, and I really feel like that comes off well on air.
Can you believe that we have been talking for 35 minutes and 52 seconds, Meredith? Crazy.
Well, I'm happy that I was able, to call in and talk to you. So thank you very much.
Of course. Meredith, you can hear her every morning on Orlando and the Freak Show on Wild 94.1 and middays on 98.7 The Shark. It's been a lot of fun having you on Hoppe Hour, and I will see you tomorrow in the hallway.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I always love and enjoy seeing you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it, Meredith.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
And that was Meredith from Orlando and the Freak Show and 98.7 The Shark, as she called in the Hoppe Hour. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing my voice or you remember me from my radio past, my name's Ryan Hoppe, and I'm the host of this award-winning podcast. I have two versions. One where I interview radio hosts and comedians and rappers, and one where I interview actors and whatnot. And then I have a morning zoo type vibe where I talk about celebrity news, kind of similar to MJ. So search up HOPPE Radio on all major podcasting platforms.
TikTok, clocks a juke, we're playing cruel pranks. Hoppe's hour almost done, feels like robbery in banks. Ryan Hoppe on the mic, dropping wisdom in streams. Syndicated sorrow, now it's time to shatter dreams. Oh, the Hoppe hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. But the laughter's growing dim. Eardrums mixing Hoppe like fingers without rings. DHX to FM, shout out hit the street. But soon the sound will vanish like shadows in the heat. Oh, the Hoppe hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. Phone lines buzzing, but the laughter's growing dim. Eardrums mixing Hoppe like fingers without rings. DHX to FM, shoutouts hit the street. But soon the sound will vanish like shadows in the heat. Oh, the Hoppe hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilting rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. Oh, life's just so unfair. Like clockwork to a show. Now it's time to face the silence like a TV on snow. Ryan Hoppe held the mic with humor so divine. The void left in our hearts wider than a canyon line. Empty speakers silent, I'm becoming coming to an end, like a roller coaster stopping round the river's bend. Hoppy jokes and jabs, these are daily grind. Now silence louder than the thoughts we can't rewind. Oh, the hobby hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilted rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair. The hobby hour is coming to a close. Radio waves fading like a wilted rose. Laughter and joy dissolving in the air, but we'll keep the rhythm. Oh, life's just so unfair.
Happy hour. Happy hour.
RyanHoppyRadio.com.
And like that, he's gone.
Happy hour is now over.
Happy hour is now over.
Game over.
This concludes our broadcast day. Good night, and God bless America.
Doors closing.